with an 81-64 victory over Notre Dame on a Saturday morning. Big time win for the Tar Heels. Maybe a track going forward with some big time things happening. Great stuff. We're going to get to it all right here on today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels.
You are Locked on Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, welcome into Locked on Tar Heels, the only daily North Carolina show out there. We're coming to you live in the aftermath of Carolina's 81-64 victory over Notre Dame, moves Carolina to 3-2 in ACC play, and Notre Dame is 0-5. I did not see that coming this season, but hey, the Irish are indeed 0-5. We're going to do what we always do on these live post-game shows. I'm going to give you several takeaways that I thought were important about the game, and then we're going to get into the chat. I know there's already some great stuff going in there, and we'll get to answering your questions and seeing your thoughts on the game as well. Here's the biggest thing. The first takeaway we've got to look at in this one is about 20-25 minutes or so before tip off, we got the starting lineup and found out that it would not be Pete Nance. From pregame warmups, it kind of felt that way because he wasn't really going through warmups, just kind of more making passes to everybody. And so that was clear. The question was going to be, would Coach Davis go with that three-guard lineup that had served Carolina so well in the final 14-09 against Wake Forest on Wednesday night? Or would he try more of a straight substitute, either starting Jalen Washington or Justin McCoy on his birthday, by the way? Happy birthday, Justin McCoy. Well, we got the answer very quickly that it was going to be Seth Trimble. And for me, I love it. I think this is the most effective, efficient, dynamic version of Carolina this season. You almost kind of hate to look at it this way, but just like last year, it took an injury for Carolina to get their best starting five. Maybe that's the same thing this year. Listen, zero disrespect to Pete Nance. He's a fantastic basketball player. But for what this team has and is, I think Seth Trimble gives Carolina their best starting five. And so I would love to see the Tar Heels go after that consistently moving forward. Will Coach Davis do it? That's the question, and we'll have to keep our eyes on that. Very curious because the next game coming up this week on Tuesday night, Carolina is at Virginia. So that's big time there. Here's the next thing is, a lot of people often talk about Coach Davis as an X's and O's coach. Clearly, everyone loves him as a person, thinks he's a great man, etc. But he doesn't always get the level of what I think is respect he deserves for the X's and O's coach he was. For example, in this game, Notre Dame comes in as a phenomenal three-point shooting team. And we've seen it through the years under Mike Brey that because Carolina goes typically in the Roy Williams era with that two big lineup, man, they're just able to switch stuff and cause Carolina all sorts of fits because Notre Dame spreads the floor, and can hit from deep from all five positions. And so what Carolina tried to do in this game was quite clear. Hey, we are not going to let Notre Dame beat us from the three-point line. We're going to get out. We're going to force Notre Dame off the three-point line, run them off of it, and make them take contested twos, whether it's against Bacot or whoever it's against. And so perhaps not so coincidentally, that three-guard lineup is all the more better prepared to handle a Notre Dame style offense. And so Carolina did that. Now, obviously, Notre Dame had some success in this game, but they only shot 7 of 18 for three and had been making 9 threes a game for their last stretch. And so they made 7 in this one. They shot just 41%, 0.7% from the field, which isn't bad. But, you compare that to Carolina shot 47.7% from the field and 42.1% from three. And obviously that was a win in Carolina's favor. Next thing I want to point out is the great job Armando Bacot did, because I think in addition to bringing Seth Trimble into the starting lineup, the other thing that Carolina has to do to be the best version of themselves, and you've heard me talk a lot about this lately, is play through Armando Bacot game after game after game. He should touch the ball on literally every offensive possession, hopefully in the post. But part of that is because not only is he so adept at scoring from that position, but he's also a capable and willing passer out of the post. You saw multiple times today where he'd get the ball in the post, a Carolina player would cut, he would either make the pass or fake it and then get himself into position to be able to make a post move. And so, like, great job there from him. Now, the other reason that was so important today is you saw from the very first offensive possession, Notre Dame was committed to a hard double team on Bacot as soon as he touched the ball, if and when they could. And he did such a great job of making a quick move, whether it was to dribble out of it and pass out, reset, or to work the ball around to find who was open because of the double team. A couple great examples of that. There was ball eventually got to RJ Davis for a wide open three with just under 4 minutes in the second half. Those kind of plays, so important. And so even thinking ahead, man, Virginia is going to do exactly that same thing on Tuesday night. They're going to come hard at Armando in those doubles, and he's got to be ready to go from the second it comes to him. And so you love to see the way Armando is processing those decisions. By the way, speaking of Armando Bacot, let's stay there with him because he now has scored 20 or more points in 5 straight games for the Tar Heels. 28 against Ohio State, 26 against Michigan, 22 at Pitt last Friday, 21 against Wake Forest on Wednesday, and then 21 again today. So that is the longest stretch of his career of doing such, when he got to 4 last week. Here's the other thing Armando did today. He passed Sam Perkins for number 2. He has sole possession of second place on the all-time Carolina rebounding list. Unreal there. So he's up to 1169 and is exactly 50 rebounds shy of Tyler Hansborough's Carolina record of 19. So he continues averaging his typical 11 or so rebounds a game. He should get there about 5 games from now. And so keep your eyes peeled for that, which, by the way, let's look ahead. So that's Virginia, Louisville, Boston College, NC State. That'd be fun if you did it against NC State, but likely it will be at Syracuse on January 24th. So somewhere in that stretch is where Armando should move past Tyler Hansborough. So make sure you are dialed in on that. Here's something in terms of Notre Dame, right? Like there was some weird moments where usually, because Mike Bray's such a nice guy and Notre Dame kind of reflects their coach in that way. But there were some moments today that I frankly was not pleased with where there's the whole thing where, Seth Trimble had this great Kendall Marshall-esque outlet pass, like got the rebound under the basket, boom, pitch ahead to Puff Johnson, streaking to the basket for the dunk. Cormac Ryan fouls him hard. It wasn't, I didn't think the foul itself was that bad. But then as they came down, he like scraped his tennis shoe across Puff's face for the automatic ejection and technical foul, or the flagrant 2 and ejection, excuse me. 2 things about this. Number one, the refs missed it in real time. There was a foul on that dunk on Cormac Ryan that went uncalled. I believe that had that been called, it wouldn't have been such a big issue, and that we might not have had that extracurricular activity. The second thing with this is what I love about Caleb Love. Pun maybe intended. No, I didn't mean to at all, but it happened. Is that Caleb Love is never afraid to go support his teammates, get in there, get his nose in it. And so I love that. Like you saw that moment, Puff goes down, Ryan lands on him, totally like the end of the play. That's just how it went, but then scrapes his foot across Puff. Caleb was right there to defend his guy, and you love You love to see that from Caleb. And so then Notre Dame has this freshman kid that is just basically coming in as an enforcer, like Theo John last year for Duke, Dom Campbell, who Bacot got in all sorts of foul trouble. Like Bacot himself didn't get in foul trouble. He got Campbell into foul trouble, and Campbell eventually fouled out. But it was just kind of weird and not something I'm used to seeing from Notre Dame. A couple other things you love in this game: 22 bench points for the Tar Heels. That is great and needs to continue to happen. Let's see. The biggest contributor of that was Puff Johnson, who had 11, including 2 threes. DeMarco Dunn had 7. He made a 3, had some nice plays. DeMarco got in there, had an offensive rebound and put back. So glad he is back and part of this lineup. And then the other points came from Jalen Washington, had another nice just mid-range jumper, had a second one that almost went down but didn't quite. And then Tyler Nickel had one in junk time there at the end of the game. A nice offensive rebound off his own shot and put back. The other thing I want to talk about is Caleb Love. There were a couple shots he took that I thought weren't in rhythm, that were kind of forced. One came right after his third 3. The next possession, he kind of forced the issue and didn't need to. But I thought this was one of the better versions of Caleb in this game. Played within the rhythm of the offense. One of my favorite things that he does is when he is aggressive and attacks, gets downhill, and either is either able to finish or to leave off for Bacot or somebody for the dunk. And so, I mean, when you look at the assists in this game, Caleb had 2, just 1 turnover, but as a team, Seth Trimble had 4 assists, Leaky Black had 3 assists, RJ Davis had 5 assists, Armando had 4 assists. And you combine that with the fact that the Tar Heels as a team only had 8 total turnovers. So that's single-digit turnovers in back-to-back ACC games now. Love that for North Carolina and what they are doing. And so speaking of assists, 19 assists on 31 made field goals. That is an assist percentage of 61.3%, meaning that since the Georgia Tech game, there was that really low assist game back-to-back against Indiana and Virginia Tech. 25% in both of those. Since those games, North Carolina has had at 40% or greater assist rate in every single game. This was the 3rd highest assist percentage of the season. And so Carolina is doing a much better job sharing the ball and hanging on to it now. So lots of stuff there. I've overwhelmed you with information. And so what I want to do is give you a little bit of an ad read. Then we're going to get in and get your questions and observations on the game. Speaking of which, I'm going to throw the chat overlay on to this one so that you can see it and get that in there. And you know what? We should throw my name on there too, because I didn't have it up. There we go. Love to see that. And let's take the Pat Kilby business off right there. Boom. We're working. We're going. We got it going on. Okay, folks. So this episode is brought to you by BetOnline, your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball. They've got it all at betonline.net. Make sure you go in and check out the line for Carolina's game at Virginia on Tuesday. This is a massive ACC game for the Tar Heels. Always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about all the trends in action. Bet online, where the game starts. Okay, let's scroll through the chat here and see what kind of stuff we want to get here. Yeah, a lot of stuff about enjoying seeing Seth in there in the starting lineup. Carolina finishes with 1.19 points per possession. Yes, so the offense is absolutely more dynamic with that. Here's our friend ARW1AJW5 says, I actually think Nance coming off the bench would be better because he would be able to play like a 5 with Bacot, not and he could stay down low more. And this is a whole part of the bringing in Seth Trimble to it for me. Why? Because Pete Nance at Northwestern was always their 5. part of why he wanted to come to Carolina is because he knew he could play alongside Armando Bacot, because at the NBA level, he projects more as a 4 than a 5. The frame is just not there to be a true 5 in the NBA for Pete Nance. And so he really kind of needs to come in and be able to be a 4. But that's just he just hasn't done that enough in his career. And so that is a big thing for him to be able to do. And so if you go with Trimble in the starting lineup, and again, this is a unique thing that Carolina could do that not many teams around the nation can do. If you've heard me talk about it much, you know that Baylor's really good at this. They have a great 3-guard lineup themselves with LJ Cryer and Adam Flagler, 2 experienced players, and then their own stud freshman, Keontae George, who's one of the best freshmen, not just in the Big 12, but the entire nation. And so the ability to have somebody as dynamic as Seth Trimble to come in alongside RJ and Caleb is a massive win. And so if you're bringing Nance in either to spell Mondo or, as the opponent lineup might call for it, to come in alongside Armando, that'd be good. And so one of the things that Pete Nance has continually said is, I'm here to do whatever I need to do to help this team. And so I fully believe that if he's like, man, I don't mind coming off the bench and being a bench player, I don't think he would be against that. So let's keep going here. Tony Dowd says, afternoon, Isaac. What up, Tony? Good to see you. Rob M. I don't recall Indy being so quote unquote thuggish. And yeah, that was a weird thing from them this game. Hello from Deza. What up, Deza? Good to see you. Josh says this. Josh and Lindsay says, really enjoyed the look with Trimble in the starting lineup. We've already hit that, but I bring this up because he says the defense looks more engaged with him in there. That was a major part of the second half against Wake Forest. North Carolina used their defense to feed the offense, and that's what kind of turned that game around on Wednesday night against Wake Forest, was that the defense fed the offense. And the same thing was true. I thought this was perhaps the most engaged defensive effort of the season from Carolina from start to finish. They're showing now a better level of consistency. I know there was that, for example, there was that one moment in the second half where Notre Dame was able to cut the lead back down to 7. What happened at that point? Carolina goes on a 7-0 run, and then the game is never in doubt again. And so to the point about defense, Carolina had 13 points off of turnovers in this one. And, considering that Notre Dame only had 8 turnovers themselves, that's a good number. You're getting a lot of movement off of that. And so let's keep going through here. So anyway, all that to say, with Trimble, and I think there will be more engaged defense all the time. Trimble is such a good defender. Our guy, Coach Pat Kilby, which I see in the comments. What up, Pat? Sorry, Pat couldn't be on the show with us today. But one of the things that Trimble does so well is he's got these tree trunk legs. One example is he got switched off into the post and was trying to guard from behind at that point, and basically just ran over Notre Dame's post player. I don't even remember who it was yet, but love to see that. But another thing, Trimble just walls up so well. He doesn't try to block the shot, although I believe he once again had 2 more blocks in this game. Yeah, Seth Trimble has 2 blocks in each of the past 2 games. Love to see that from him. And so he's a guy that you trust because his defense can do just exactly that. Rob M, I want to bring this up because this is another part of the defense. He says the way Davis looks at matchups, not sure he would be set on this starting lineup. And that's a legit thing, is that we have so often talked about how uncertain we are of what Coach Davis wants to do game in and game out with unpredictable rotations, we'll call them. And so I don't know that he would be set on this lineup, but one of the things is that because Carolina can do this and is so dynamic when they go with this lineup, other teams don't know what to do with it and can't handle it. Again, a la Baylor, like Big 12 teams just don't know what to do with that. The other thing is that Carolina is already starting to figure out how to handle mismatches. So, for example, Notre Dame is always trying to do everything they can to the one player they could switch off and move around is Armando, right? He's the one of those starting five that just isn't as mobile as the other four. And so they were constantly trying to switch him onto a guard or something like that. Well, often what it did was put RJ Davis on Nate Laszewski. What you often saw if you're watching off the ball is RJ would be guarding Nate Laszewski, and either Caleb or Leaky would switch with RJ before the ball got there so that a bigger player could go up against Laszewski, because RJ is only 6 feet, 6'1", right? And so Carolina is figuring out like, hey, I know we're going to be a bit undersized on some of these mismatches, but what do we need to do to help it? And so there you go with it. All right, let's keep scrolling through. Jonathan Fox says, I like Puff at the 3 more than the 4. Is it me, or should Leaky slide to 4 when Puff comes in for minutes? Saw some shots of Ian Jackson on his visit. Seems to be having a blast. So let's hit Jonathan. Great to see you, brother. Let's hit both of those things. One of the issues is if you have both Puff and Leaky in the game, you are missing some offensive firepower. Now, if it's Leaky and Puff plus like RJ, Caleb, and Mondo, you feel fine with that. And yes, absolutely. If it's that lineup, I want to see Puff at the 3 and Leaky at the 4. They're both big guys, but Leaky has even a little bit more size and height. And for example, you saw him going up against Paolo Banchero last year, the number 1 player in the draft, the presumptive rookie of the year in the NBA this season, and holding his own. And so, yes, absolutely. It's Leaky that I want to see in the 4. And clearly in this 3-guard lineup is going to play the 4. So he's used to it. He's willing to do it. And I think that's a great point, Jonathan. Second thing, Ian Jackson is a highly valued recruit that Carolina wants to get, was in attendance today. A great game to be in attendance for, despite the early start, which Carolina, I thought, handled really well. They came out, we haven't talked about this, but engaged and locked in and ready to go from the tip. And so a great environment for him to be in. It doesn't mean everything to have a win, but it certainly can't hurt to do it. Speaking of Leaky, let me not come off of him, because it's interesting. Out of a game in which Leaky had set a career high in scoring on Wednesday night against Wake Forest with 18, didn't do much in this game offensively. For the majority of the game, hadn't scored any points, finishes with 4. But here's what Leaky does. Look at the rest of his box score. 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 0 turnovers, 2 blocks, and 2 steals in just 23 minutes of action, was plus 13 for the game. This is phenomenal and is what Carolina needs to have. You always need a player like this that can score in its bonus, but fills up the box score in other ways. And obviously this doesn't even calculate everything that he does defensively for the Tar Heels. And so love to see what Leaky's bringing there. Let's keep going through the chat. What else we want to hit on and talk about? Nintendo Nerd, always great to see Nintendo Nerd hopping in. Pete is great, as we've said, like nothing against Pete in anything that's going on, but says, and yet we've won both of these games without him on the floor, meaning clearly Carolina is going to be able to compete and win high-level ACC games even without Pete Nance. So what that tells you is, if Coach Davis decides to turn him into a bench player, kind of a la Dawson Garcia when Brady Manick came into the starting lineup last year, then Carolina should still be in good shape. And if you're bringing Pete Nance off the bench, boy howdy, you love to see that. Tony Dowd, looking forward a little bit. Let's go ahead and do that. Obviously, we will do a full preview of the Virginia game on Tuesday's show, but no reason we can't do some of that right now. What would be the best lineup against Virginia? It's all about matchups. Well, one of the truths is folks who are big Carolina basketball fans know that Carolina has struggled against the Tony Bennett Virginia Cavaliers under Roy Williams. Keep in mind, last season, North Carolina did great against Virginia under the Hubert Davis regime. I'm looking back on the scores of those games. I believe they played twice last year. Forgive me while I track this down really quick. Okay, the first game was on Saturday, January 8th in Chapel Hill. Carolina won 74-58. Wow, you love that. And then the second game was in the ACC tournament. Carolina won that one 63-43. So Carolina did phenomenally in both of their games against Virginia last year. And part of the reason for the matchup greatness that Carolina did is remember what Coach Davis did with Leaky. Leaky was guarding Kihei Clark. Kihei Clark is the engine that makes Virginia go, but is under 6 feet. Like, he is smaller than RJ Davis. So what did Coach Hubert Davis did? He put Leaky Black on him, and Virginia couldn't do anything. Now, they are more talented and more experienced this year, so I think they will do better against the Tar Heels. And obviously this game is going to be in Charlottesville. They didn't play at Charlottesville last year, once in Chapel Hill, once in the ACC tournament. But I think Carolina should match up well against the Cavs, but you have to be patient. This Notre Dame is great experience for this because Notre Dame plays slow, fewer possessions as well. But I'm looking for that lineup. And so I really wouldn't be surprised to see this same starting lineup against the Cavs Tuesday night. All right, let's continue to go. Oh, man, this one from Rob. I love this. If Leaky continues to be aggressive, this starting lineup could relentlessly attack the rim. Dude, Rob, this is so good, and you are so right. One of the things that I have harped on throughout Leaky's career, as athletic as he is, as long as he is, as tall as he is, especially thinking through the types of players he guards, he has to be more aggressive. Like, get to the rim and dunk all over everybody, yam on everybody. And so I love him being aggressive. But to Rob's point, you think about RJ, he can get wherever he wants to go anytime he wants to get there, especially that pick and roll game with he and Mondo is just devastating to other teams, especially if there's not a second big in the game and Carolina can spread the floor. So RJ can attack. Caleb is so good attacking. I would rather him not attempt a single three and just attack, get to the, like, if RJ and Caleb are living at the free throw line, I am all good on that. And then Mondo positionally can certainly attack, right? Like, so there are times Mondo is a great post player, but sometimes against a less mobile big, obviously that didn't work today against Nate Laszewski, but against slower bigs, give Mondo the ball 7 feet away from the basket and let him attack. And obviously Seth Trimble is great going to the rim as well, and is a great and willing passer. And so, yeah, Rob, all on board with that. Yeah, Nintendo Nerd. Still some pretty frustrating ACC officiating today. There were a couple more delayed whistles like there were the other night. There was also, like I mentioned earlier, Puff was on the play where Cormac Ryan was ejected. Puff was fouled on that play. No way around it. And so, and there's some others that were just questionable. Who was it that was fouled? Was it Leaky that Hubert Davis was all over the refs for? So, man. Okay, let's keep going. ARW1 says Duke is struggling against Boston College. I haven't even been keeping up. I've got Kentucky and Alabama going on behind me here. I believe Oscar Sheboy has not scored a basket yet. UK is down 19 to Alabama. Duke is winning by 2 over Boston College right now. Wow, hadn't seen that craziness. All right, let's keep going. Rob says some point at RJ Davis, some at Caleb Love, but Bacot is the engine of this team. There was an immediate and noticeable drop-off when he first went to the bench. Yeah, but imagine in a world where Pete Nance is that guy coming in off the bench. That is a different North Carolina team, and he brings different things. Like, if Pete Nance is your 5, boy, you can spread the ball even more. The rebounding isn't quite there, but man, that is interesting stuff. But I think RJ is the one that really has to be the guy, and let everyone else play off the ball, let Caleb play off the ball, whomever it is. But man, yeah, Mondo is just such an engaging and heart guy that he really is the engine in a lot of ways. Random Darkness. This is the best one I've seen today. Our small ball lineup works because Seth is built like a running back. Dude, that is so true. Seth Trimble, you do not want to go and fight with him. It's like, what's that line from Princess Bride? You don't want to go into a land war in Asia or whatever. Like, you don't want to go up against Seth Trimble. And that's part of, man, this is so good, Random Darkness. That's part of why this works, is because he can guard in the post bigger guys. He, as we talked about earlier, holds that defensively. And so absolutely part of why this works so well is because of who he is. Looking ahead to Duke and the 3-guard lineup. We'll have to talk about that as we get going. Pack, what's up, Coach Pat Kilby? He's not able to join us today, but he says Notre Dame has had a tendency of dirty play over the Bray years. Bray is a solid guy, but he got his coaching roots from Duke, so I'm not totally surprised by their dirty play. We'll just let that one speak for itself from Pack and keep going. Man, yeah. Nintendo says, I knew C-Love would clap back this game. I guarantee he was frustrated by his performance the previous 2 games. Yeah, and part of it is because he made that first shot. Remember, the first 2 possessions of the game, ball goes into Bacot. He's double teamed, finds Love in the corner, beautiful looking 3, and then he's off and running. And I think that's part of it, is if he gets off to a good start, man, look out, world, because here he comes. A couple comments in the chat looking at the possibility of Seth Trimble leaving after this year, and part of that would be his offense getting together, as some people are saying, and this is absolutely true. Seth Trimble is such a good and solid defender, and that is going to pay big dividends for him when he eventually goes to the NBA, but he needs another year. And by the way, if he think about 3-guard lineups next year, because I got to believe RJ's coming back. DeMarco Dunn is looking really good, folks. Another year progression of him. Seth Trimble. Don't forget Simeon Wilcher's coming in next year. You got to imagine Caleb's gone. But Carolina can this 3-guard lineup is the way forward, I think, this year and beyond. Boy, oh boy. How many minutes? Carson Hooper says, love the minutes from Puff today. Puff played 22 minutes. That's so good. That's more. I want to see Puff in that 15 to 20 minute range, game in and game out. Hadn't been playing many minutes lately, and so really glad to see that. Pack back in with this comment. Bench play was fire today. Major test of coaches' plans moving forward will be to see how much he trusts the bench at Virginia on Tuesday evening. Man, that's a great point from Pack there. Keep your eyes peeled for that. And how many who all gets in off the bench? Does Nickel get any time? He did only in junk time today, essentially. And how much time does a Tyler Nickel get in that game? I'm expecting it to really, and a lot of it will depend on if Puff's back. If Pete Nance is back. If Pete is not back, I expect it to be the 5 starters along with some DeMarco and some Puff. I think we'll really see him rely on that 7 in that game, especially because Virginia plays at such a slow pace that you can keep the guys in for longer. Matthew Kataba asks, who is your favorite player from each class? I'm assuming you mean the classes that are there and maybe the ones to come. Goodness. For the let's look at the incoming classes first. So for the incoming class next year, you've got Simeon Wilcher and you've got Zayden High. And so in that class, I like both of these guys a lot, but I think it's Simeon Wilcher just because he is just going to be so insanely good. For the class right after that, where you've already got 3 commits now, you've got Mr. Drake Powell, you've got Elliot Cadeau, and you got James Brown. You love James Brown for the name, but it's Elliot Cadeau I am most excited about just because of who he will be as a playmaking guard. Drake Powell's going to bring a lot as a defender, but it is Elliot Cadeau. Let's work our way back up. For the freshman class, obviously that's Tyler Nickel, Will Shaver, Seth Trimble, Jalen Washington. Man, these guys are all so different. I don't know how I pick from that group. Tyler Nickel is just this unique personality. I love him, just like, I'm a shoot anytime, and you think it might go in. Seth Trimble, there's just so much good stuff he does. He's such a unique player. And obviously Jalen Washington is immensely talented and one of the nicest kids you could ever meet. I think I'm going to have to go with Trimble just because he's such a unique player and defender that can do things that we haven't seen at Carolina. For the sophomores, Dunn and Styles, I'm going to go with Dunn just because of his resiliency. Like this time last year, I was like, Dunn's out. He's going to transfer. And now, like, I look at him as a very integral piece of this team. As for the juniors, you've got RJ, Puff, and Caleb Love. It's RJ for me. I just love me some RJ Davis. And then for the seniors and above, we'll look at seniors and grad transfers, Mondo, Leaky, Justin McCoy, and Pete Nance. For me, from on the court production, it's Mondo. Like, it's just so cool to see what he does. But in terms of like, who do I just like? It's absolutely Leaky. Like, I just love Leaky Black. I love his resilience. I love everything he does for this team, the things that are seen and unseen. Just love, love, love Leaky. All right. I'm not sold on this one from QA's Fresh. Puff definitely leaving after this year. I don't think that's true at all. All due respect. I think Puff is going to be an integral part. Like, he might move it kind of into that Leaky role next year. So I'm not so sold on that one. Nintendo, I hope Jalen Washington continues to get more minutes. Yeah, need that from him. Let's keep looking. Yeah. Defense, watching the defense. Nintendo, main thing I was watching was defense, and it did not disappoint. Still some issues to fix. Yeah, absolutely. But they overall were locked in on defense from beginning to end. Yes, I think part of it is because they're becoming more cohesive right now, and that helps them a lot. God Bless America says, why does Tyler Nickel get so little playing time? It's all about defense. ACC offenses would attack and expose him possession after possession. It's kind of like Kerwin Walton last year, how he would just get abused defensively. Now, there are going to be times when Carolina looks at we just need some scoring, and he'll get there. But here's what you love about Tyler Nickel. You've heard Leaky talk about this, is that Nickel is so locked into learning from him. Like, how do I get better defensively? All these kind of things. And so it's going to get there. It's just not going to be this year. He's not going to get as many minutes this year, but keep keeping like Tyler brings great things to this team and will be good. Just long-term for Carolina, he's going to be a massive piece of this team. Cindy Shade, I know this lady, she birthed me, says, do you think UNC will be back in the top 25 with today's win? Unfortunately, Cindy, my dear mother, I love you so much, but I'm going to have to say no. Even though the 5 losses are all quad 1 losses, there's just not enough that they've done yet. I tell you what, though, you go beat Virginia on Tuesday night, and then who is next Saturday's game? You got Virginia, and then Louisville next Saturday. So that should be a win. Thankfully, that should be an away win. So I think if Carolina takes care of Virginia and Louisville this week, then you probably see them back in the week after that. Coach Pat Kilby says, Isaac, give us your thoughts on Jalen Washington. What can he do to earn a regular rotation spot? Pat, that's a great question. I don't think, even if Pete Nance is out, I don't think that he would become the starter. I think it's going to continue to be Seth as long as Pete Nance is out. And for me, hopefully even once Pete is back, although I think Coach will go back to Pete as the starter, but we'll see. In order to earn regular rotation spot and more minutes, I think it's about him continuing to get tougher on defense and learning. It's about the experience of, like, he missed so much time of basketball coming off his injury and missed so much time at the beginning of this season. Now, he's obviously been soaking in a lot. And, like he is learning as he's watching his team before he gets back in to regularly playing. But I think in order to keep earning minutes, he's just got to keep knocking down that mid-range, keep getting more adept defensively in the post, and just keep hustling. He does a great job. It looks like, Pac, you and I talked about this, obviously, Wednesday night. He needs to keep trusting his body, and that's what he's doing. All right, we got some more stuff, but man, we've gone about 40 minutes, so we need to get on out of here today. Thank you for all the great stuff. I know there's questions and thoughts we didn't get to. Love everyone tuning in. Make sure you are back with us on Monday, where we unpack this show a little more fully, unpack this game, a little more fully. Remember, the women play again tomorrow at home versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame top 5 team in the women's game, and then a massive game on Tuesday for the men as they travel to Charlottesville. Got to get that win against Virginia. Big time game there. Be ready for it. Folks, this is Isaac Shade. Always great to be together. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Let's check back in on Duke one more time before we get out of here, because that is always an important thing to do. They're up 4 on Boston College with 6:20 to go. That's on ACC Network if you want to tune in. I hope you have a great Saturday. We'll catch you Monday, but until then, peace.